the dude that my dad beat up was standing behind you like a coward. So I guess it must run in the family that both of you guys are cowards. This is Chicano up in Paradise, and today I want to talk to you guys about another Pico Union story. This one is about my father. My father was the Pico Union OG, man. My dad ran the streets. He literally ran the streets way before I did, way before any of my homies did. He was the OG Pico Union man that would be out there. He was the one that would lend your dad money. He was like the local loan shark, for lack of a better word. And anyone, there's people in Pico Union that could vouch for him. El Pantera from Zamora, Michoacan. He was known. He was known back in Michoacan, and he was known on the streets of Pico Union. He went from running the streets in Zamora up until the age of 17, 18, and then he came over to the States, and you know, he started his own life right there by the east side of Pico Union, which is more towards where the convention center is at right now. That place used to be a pretty ghetto right there, and there was a street called DeLong Street, and DeLong Street was it was nothing nice. It was the poor of the poor. You got to think my dad came over here as an immigrant, crossed the border illegally 1, 2, 3 times, and he stayed for sure the third time because he got a nice job for what you can get back in the 70s. You know, I wasn't even born yet, and you know, he was working packing potatoes, to say the least. But we couldn't afford anything but a studio house. It was like a little, what it was a house that was broken down into different apartments. And for you Pico Union OGs, I'm not even talking about my generation or the generation right now, because the generation right now won't even have a clue. I'm talking about people before my generation, the real OGs. You know, the 1970s people, the 1960s people. You guys will know this place because we lived right in front of the old police station that was on DeLong Street. To give you guys an idea where DeLong Street was right where the Pico exit is and the convention center. When you come in on the Santa Monica freeway, right? And then there's like, you exit right there. Well, DeLong Street was right underneath that freeway overpass. And that's where we lived. We lived right underneath that freeway overpass in a small little shack. Me, my brother, my sister, my mom, and my dad in a studio. That's how poor we were, man. Poor of the poor. Immigrant poor. As you guys know, that's even poorer than American poor. Because you can't even make the money that you would legally, because, you know, he was getting paid under the table. And even if we wanted to, my dad wouldn't allow it. We couldn't even get food stamps. So, you know, you have no help. You got to hustle, and my dad was a hustler. That's what he did. That's how he brought us up. That's how he survived. He was out there running the streets, lending people money, because he knew people that were like him that couldn't go to the bank and get a loan. So even till his like late 50s and early 60s, he was still doing that. So he did that his whole life. Another thing he would do is he would run quinielas. What quinielas are is you know, like basically what it is like gambling today, like sports gambling. He would do that, but he would do it old school way on paper. Now you do everything online, and he would run it. He would run the books, and so he would make money that way. And so he was known in Pico Union, man. My dad was known in Pico Union. He used to, when in his younger days, like when I was still a baby, before I was born, until I was like a baby, a toddler even, he would go to the bars. He would frequent a bar right there in what's known as the Burlington Locals neighborhood now, right on Pico, and right where the Johns is. There used to be a bar right in front of the Johns, to the side, a little to the side, and that was his bar. That was his bar in the late 70s, early 80s, up to the mid 80s. And so my dad was a scrapper. He would like to get into fights. He would get into fights all the time. He was a street fighter, and he was good at it. He would fuck fools twice his size, you know, because my dad was small, but he was a scrapper. He would get down. He was down. He knew how to fight, man. My dad knew how to fight. That was his thing. He was known for that. Even in back in Zamora, you know, my dad was cool as hell until he got one too many beers in him. Then he would want to pick a fight. and he would pick a fight with his homies too. So, and man, if you guys know my dad and you're from Pico Union, as you guys can vouch, man, my dad was a scrapper. And so yeah, we were there for a while in that whole area, the east side of Pico Union, before we moved to the west side. And we moved from the east side to the west side of Pico Union because eminent domain. If you guys know about eminent domain, man, that means they could just boot you out of your house, your apartment, your property without any reason why. I mean, the reason was that they built a convention center. They destroyed our house and they built the convention center. So we went on to the west side, which is the 18th Street neighborhood of Pico Union, over there by Alvarado, near Alvarado, Alvarado and Olympic. So between 11th and Olympic, Union and Alvarado, that was all our territory for me and my homies, you know, and that was 18th Street territory. We were there, that's where we grew up, and it didn't get any better. As a matter of fact, I would say it got worse, because when we lived in DeLong, it was just like us, but it was kind of like desolate. So people wouldn't go in there. It was an abandoned police station, as I mentioned, and one time my brother went in there with his friends and they saw a dude hung by the neck inside the abandoned police station. And so that was Pico Union back in the days. One thing I do remember is that one of those big tractor trailers fell off the freeway overpass about 200 yards from our house. So it was pretty close. You could feel it. Not only just hear it, you could feel it. And that was like a big old scene. And this is another thing that my dad used to do as a hustler. So where we lived, it was right in front of 2 empty parking lots. Big old parking lots, man. I'm telling you, dude, my dad, he had a mind for money, you know, even though he didn't have a high education, because, you know, he left, his mom made him get out of school early so he can work for the family. What he would do is that empty parking lot, whenever the convention center would have events, he would set up outside of those parking lots. He would have, you know, my brother and one of his friends just be out there, you know, hanging out, waving people in, and he would collect money. He'd get $5 from people, and people would just come, park in there, give us $5 and leave. And this was just like an empty parking lot that didn't even have a gate, didn't even have a fence. It was just places where nobody used. And so my dad took advantage of that, and he did that almost every weekend. So you know how he would start stacking up his paper. He worked, but he would stack his paper. And so everybody loved him. All his homies loved him. They just knew that when he drank too much, stay away and don't argue with him, because he will pick a fight, and then he'll fight with you, and then he'll apologize the next day. So but they liked him because he had money. So he would be the one that would buy everybody the beers. Like he'd roll up with 30 packs. Hey, what's up, let's get fucked up, you know, and excuse my, you know, my language, but that's how it be, you know. And so my mom told me I never saw my father drink during the week, which is great because I didn't know of him drinking during the week. My dad was the type that he would work his 9 to 5 during the week, come home and eat and go to bed early. My dad he would go to bed super early for as long as I remember my memory. But she said that before me, he would drink during the week. He would go to the bars and hang out and then come home drunk. But I guess my thing is he probably got older and wiser and said, hey, you can't do this all the time. So from what I remember is he would be sober the whole week, but then when the weekend came, man, he would get so messed up. And it was a common occurrence where people would come knocking at the door to my mom's house and be like, hey, Manuel, that was my dad's name, he's passed out on the street, you guys might want to go get him. And that's how messed up my dad would drink. That was the type of alcoholic that my dad was. Only on the weekends though, Friday and Saturday. Sunday he didn't drink because Sunday was church. So and he would be, you know, he would be hungover a couple of times, but my mom would make him some menudo in the morning and he'd be ready to go, but no drinking on Sundays. So that was the type of a dad that I had, you know. And he was known all over the streets, you know, for fighting and for being a good dude and for lending people money, for being a hustler, for being funny. My dad was the center of attention wherever he was at. And me as a child, I was an introvert, so I was like the complete opposite. But I would sit there and I would observe my dad. You know, I would love to go out with my dad because I would see him and I'd be like, man, my dad's a superstar. That's the way I saw it. And he was, you know, but then he would be too drunk and his friends would come and be like, you should tell your mom to come get him, you know, he's already passing out. He would pass out, dude, after a while. And he wouldn't remember the next day what happened, and I would tell him and he would tell me, no, that's not true, you know. But yeah, you know, that was the sad part of him, that he would drink like that. But there was a lot of good things about him, you know. And that's the Pico Union OG right there, El Pantera, Zamora, Michoacan. So I got roots there, guys. Even though I was born in Boyle Heights, the only reason I was born in Boyle Heights is because that was the General Hospital, the USC. That's where I was born at, USC General Hospital. But other than that, dude, I'm a true blue Pico Union dude, you know, through and through. And my pops was even more Pico Union than me, because, you know, he lived there longer than I did. And he has more ties and more connections there than I do. He probably knows your dad if you're from Pico Union, to be honest with you. Show him this video and they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I know him. That's Pantera's son. So and there's some other stories that I could get into about some dudes that jumped him, and I don't want to get into it right now because I'll get pissed off and I don't want to say some things that, you know, I'll regret. But yeah, there were some dudes. I'll just tell you where they lived. They lived in front of Lucy's, and he's a coward. He knows what's up. He knows what he did. And we went, just so you know, I'm not gonna call you out by name, but me and my brother, we went to his house, knocked on his house for what he did to my dad. Him and his homies, what they did to my dad. They jumped my dad because my dad fucked up your dad, and you know that. He beat his ass one-on-one, and you couldn't take that. You couldn't take it, so you got all your homies to jump my dad because that's the only way you guys could do him in, you know. And they did. They fractured his skull, fractured his ribs. Ever since then, he had brain damage. You know, he would forget a lot. But you know, you're a coward for what you did. Number one, for jumping him, and number two, for ranking it on my older brother when we both went to your house, knocked on your door, accident. But you know, you're a coward for what you did. Number one, for jumping him, and number two, for ranking it on my older brother when we both went to your house, knocked on your door. The dude that my dad beat up was standing behind you like a coward. So I guess it must run in the family that both of you guys are cowards. The dude that my dad beat up was standing behind you like a coward. So I guess it must run in the family that both of you guys are cowards. So that's it, man. That's the story of my dad. And, you know, hope you guys enjoyed it. It's an OG Pico Union story. I don't know how much OG it gets than that. You know what I mean? So a lot of knuckleheads out there doing dumb shit. Excuse my language again. But how many are out there doing what my dad did? You know, helping out the community in a way by lending money, you know, buying people free beer, you know, making people smile. Because my dad, he would dance. He was such a people person. He would dance. He would make people laugh, you know. He would tell jokes all the time. That was my dad, you know. Like, I just, you know, sometimes I just think of those old mafia movies, you know, where there's like a guy just telling stories and everybody's just laughing and laughing like uncontrollably. Well, my dad was the one telling those stories. So and here I am telling stories, but I guess in a different way, the introvert way, you know what I mean? So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. There will be more stories to come, and yeah, so stay tuned. Peace. Leave you with a little glimpse of paradise.